replace it with skyscraper blocks.
Lambeth Council wants to demolish the estate in Tulse Hill and rebuild.
Down with the old, up with the new.
The Wellington Rooms today are handled by Liverpool Corporation. One of the problems we were having was getting enough time in the building because of health and safety regulations.
So, is there a problem over here?
Yeah, well, obviously there's fallen plaster.
What, just
from
down
that
this way?
height, and the weight of it is a little bit dodgy.
Gosh, the water's ruining the Adams ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah. Just trying to avoid that column there.
That column?
Hmm.
And you couldn't just let us just stay here for an hour or two? And
I couldn't, no. I mean,
Yeah.
have you signed anything with Kevin or an indemnity form?
I don't mind signing an indemnity form.
Well, I haven't got anything on me at the minute, so
Right.
I wouldn't.
And if we sign an indemnity form, that if we fell through the floor, we wouldn't sue Liverpool Corporation, would that make any difference?
It would certainly help.
So this is the really bad area.
It is. Problem with this is, whilst there's been previous moisture ingress, when you dry a place out, you've got expansion and contraction of materials, so the plaster has shrunk and it's just dried and come away. So,
Right.
And whilst the individual small pieces doesn't feel as though they're heavy, if they fall from a decent height, they're going to hurt.
When it lands on your head.
Yeah.
Well, we won't sue Liverpool Corporation anyway.
You might not sue, but we could be civil proceedings in terms of manslaughter or anything like that, couldn't we? So.
But it feels
Hence-
very solidly constructed, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It
I mean,
doesn't move when I did that.
as I say, we've got joist ends here which are potentially rotten, so we don't want to take that risk, hence why it's a supervised visit.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to imagine now, but when I last knew the Wellington Rooms, it was the Irish Centre, full of dancing and light. You can't really understand what's happened to the Wellington Rooms today in its isolation without first understanding what happened to the local community that once surrounded it. When I first knew this area in the heart of Liverpool, it was full of people, Irish, Italians, Greeks, Somalis, Chinese, all living side by side. It was a real community then. It was called the Abercrombie Community and existed for over 300 years. Most of the buildings predate the Wellington Rooms themselves. The community that surrounded the Wellington Rooms has now disappeared. I made my first student film here, told through the eyes of Ruth and Bertha about their friends and neighbours.
It was a sweet bit to live in, I'll be truthful. When I come to live here, you could leave your doors open and you wouldn't miss a thing. It'll tell you how good it was. At that time, I lived in the basement. I used to open my basement window. Well, it'd be my turn one day to make a pot of tea and buy cakes, pass it through the window, and they'll all sit around my window. Well, then it'd be someone else's turn the next day, and that's the way it went on. And harmless times, really. You understand what I mean? There was no badness at all, just dancing and, yeah, like you say, making a fool of ourselves.
But the decision was made to demolish the housing, a lot of it Georgian as seen here, with no regard for the community. This is the exact spot where we filmed. And this is what has replaced it. The people from here, in this area now taken over by the university, were moved out to places like Cantrell Farm or Kirby, miles from the city centre. We met with George Scully, who grew up here, and who answered a radio appeal we made for the old community to come forward.
All the beautiful houses like this, on that side, all the way up, demolished. Beautiful houses on that way up, demolished. The Faculty of Law in 1949-50 was one house on this corner. Now it's a massive department up there on the corner of Chatham Street and Myrtle Street.
And are there streets that have gone completely that were here?
Cambridge Street ran through there into Grove Street with beautiful houses there. They were demolished. And the people were kept totally uninformed. When we lived here, when there was a community here, working class community, there were no amenities, but it was still a very rich community. But now there is just nothing, because the students have no affinity with this area. Most of them come from other towns in England, or most of them come from abroad. So they have no affinity. And for half of the year, you know, if you just take the academic year into account, they're not even here. They go away. So all of this area is a ghost town.
The irony is that George ended up as a student at the university.
In fact, the English department was built on my house, which I couldn't get my head around. You know, it interfered with my studies. When I was sitting in the common room of a day, you know, I was saying, well, the Lloyds used to live here, and the McNamees used to live here, and we lived here. And I was daydreaming all the time, you know.
So your house on Heath Street used to be right there?
And that is the English department.
Now there's only the university left. This is the Wellington Rooms when they were built in 1815, when the columned entrance was still open. Sedan chairs brought the men and women to separate entrances on either side of the building. They met in the ballroom. Each year, the horse that won the Grand National would be brought to the ballroom to drink from a bucket of champagne. The only balls to be cancelled during those years were for the Boer War and the death of Queen Victoria. It didn't seem to put anyone off that the Wellington Rooms were built next to the biggest workhouse in Britain. Built in 1769, the workhouse had 4,000 people. In 1923, much of the wealth had left Liverpool, and the building was sold. For many years, it became the Rodney Youth Centre and served the local community. In 1965, the Wellington Rooms became the Irish Centre and the spiritual home of Irish life in Liverpool. There was massive Irish immigration to Liverpool during the 19th century. By 1860, 20% of Liverpool's population was Irish, mostly the poorest and worst paid. There was a lot of anti-Irish feeling.
You were involved with this place for like years and years and years.
I was involved from when it opened in '64 until about 3 years before it closed down, late 80s. And I used to work here regularly. Virtually every Sunday night I did the reception desk here.
The reception desk?
Which was this Fallchair reception, yes.
So show us around. And you met your wife here. Let's go into the big room.
Yes, I came here from the time it was opened. At the same time as I was coming here, my wife was helping out in the kitchens, and we met here. And
fell in love.
Fell in love and got married and had our reception in this room, this ballroom. And you can see the remains of the frieze along part of it. And you can imagine that beautifully painted and decorated and all the rest of it. And this was the dance floor here, and down at the back you had chairs and tables where people sat.
Hello. Bye bye. Those good times will come nevermore. Take me back once again to that.
During the 80s, this ballroom was absolutely full every Friday and Saturday night because big bands like Big Tom and the Mainliners and Brendan Shine and people like that were coming over from
Because there's a stage over there, isn't there?
And that's the stage there. People came here because this was the place where the Irish community on Merseyside met. And this was the place where they carried on their cultural,
and
social
it was a happy place.
affairs. A very, very happy place. And it was also a place where people could come in and feel at home.
Yeah.
As you can hear from me, my Irish accent has not left me. And you could come in here and talk whatever way you would talk and nobody be passing remarks and things like that. Those kind of little things that mean so much.
These are future plans submitted for the Wellington Rooms.
Do you think it has a future, the building?
No, I don't think the building has a future unless some multi-millionaire comes along and has got a few millions to spare and he can do it up. But I don't know what it could be used for. It certainly could not be used again ever as an Irish centre because the Irish community could not support it. There are not enough people here at the moment.
And you said there were so many strict rules with English heritage that it made it very difficult.
Well, it's a grade 2 listed building. So every time you want to get anything done, you all have got to get the approval of English heritage. And what we found when I was on the executive committee here was that as soon as English heritage were involved, the cost of everything went up.
There has, however, been some recent talk of the university taking over the building.
So which was the spot?
Sean fell in love with his wife the first moment he saw her in the Wellington Rooms.
And what happened?
I walked across the room to having consumed a couple of pints of beer and said, saw you across a crowded room and all that shit, and she thought I was some sort of drunken idiot. But to cut a long story short, we had a dance before the end of the night to the ballad of James Codley. I've to get the sins.
That's fantastic. And you saved a ticket or something?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah. That's from the night. She gave me a phone number. Sorry about that. Yeah, there's the ticket, and there's the phone number. There's a ticket from the night. And we've still got the same phone number.
And it's great that you've been in love ever since.
Oh, well, he phones me at least once a day in work, and then I say, oh, I love you, Sean Bell, love you, and everyone goes, oh, God, this is sick. But yes, we're still very close.
You do everything together.
Grew up and raised together, don't we?
Yeah.
Not sad, but I've got loads of friends as well, but we do everything together.
A great crowd had gathered outside of Kilmainham, their heads all uncovered, they knelt to the ground. For inside that grim prison lay a brave Irish soldier, his life for his country about to lay down. He went to his death like a true son of Ireland, the firing party he bravely did face. Then the order rang out, present arms and fire. James Connolly fell into red.
It's a building that has inspired a lot of love. When the Irish Centre closed, people literally took to the roof to protest.
Staff here will stay on the rooftop protest as long as necessary.
The rooftop protest lasted 6 months, but it failed. And the Wellington Rooms have been empty ever since. We got a call from Liverpool Planning that they were about to announce a potential £8 million scheme with the university to save the Wellington Rooms. But it didn't seem to actually add up to much.
We've still yet to define the detail of it all, so we've started that process. We will get a 12-month exclusivity, which will allow us to go through the architectural, the costings, and then to look at potential sources of funding. And then we'll take all of that back to the City Council and see where we are. We're very lucky, I think, having the universities very keen in being involved, because that answers the big question of how are you going to use this building.
It all sounded very hazy to me. I got the distinct feeling they made the announcement just to keep us happy. Barbara and Ellen met 70 years ago at the Wellington Rooms, and they're still best friends.
Hello. Come on. So have you come to go dancing today?
Pardon?
Are you going to come and do some dancing with us?
Yes, we are.
You are?
Yes, we are. We're looking forward to it.
So for how many years did you dance here?
From 1961 until it closed. Yeah.
So were you teenagers then?
Yes.
All right.
Oh, here's where we had our fun.
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know, it's lovely to see it again, though,
Yeah.
even though it's not usable.
No.
It's lovely to see it.
It's kept.
It brings back everything.
It kept the rest, you know, it hasn't deteriorated really,
No.
has it?
Look at the chandelier.
I know, yeah. That's great.
Think of all the dancing I did here when I was young.
You didn't have a care in the world then. We were all
I haven't
friends
now,
together.
thank God. But
All friends together.
you can just hear that music from years ago. You know, just being here. And the laughter, the fun. Oh, fantastic. This is where we used to sit, over here. Yeah. Actually, on that picture, that's where we were sitting. That you can remember everything about it. Oh, look at that. Oh, gosh, the roof is leaking.
Oh, look at that.
Wow. You'd wonder how they could let it go into such a state of disrepair and do nothing about it.
I really hope the university plans work out. In the meantime, I just had to see dancing and hear music again in the Wellington Rooms.
Wow, look at that. It's really screwed up.
The Coal Exchange was my favourite building when I lived in Cardiff, and when I recently read that it was faced with demolition, I came back to visit my old friend.
Hi.
Hi, come on in.
Nice to see you.
I'm Lisa. Through here is the main hall, which we're not allowed into anymore. The council has put a restrictive order on it because they believe it's dangerous.
But we can't go in?
Unfortunately, no. You don't get to argue with the council health and safety department. They say it's dangerous. They're the bosses.
Why do you think they wanted to close it?
I think that's a very long story. Let's take you upstairs to the office so we can tell it. Come on into our office, Save the Coal Exchange. And this is Ian, who's one of the other directors.
Nice to meet you. So what have we got here?
This is some of the stills of the building in occupation, and that's the floor of the exchange full of the traders.
Albert Alexander, the last working member of the Coal Exchange, was 99 when this interview was given.
I was 24, so that would have been 1925. And I was the youngest member on the floor of the Exchange by 30 years. I was really a kid. It was fabulous, you know. I had to dress in striped trousers, spats, black shoes, spats, and striped trousers, and my membership was 323. And I finished up number 3, and I saw the thing finish.
When I knew it in later days, it had become a live events venue. Then in 2013, it was suddenly closed. Why do you think the council actually closed the hall down?
They closed it to allow a developer to make a large lot of money out of it. At one point, the idea was to build a 21-storey tower block here, a facade retention scheme which would keep 3/4 of the outside wall up, and then basically just build a tower block in the middle with flats in it, and apartments, which is pretty vile, really.
And I guess that's where the money is. That's where they think the money is.
The money is per square metre. The more floors you've got, the more square metres you've got, the more profit you make, really.
I so admire what you're doing. It must take a lot of time and energy. And
Ian's the man who's here 5 days a week, unpaid, in the office. But it's been really interesting. I've done a lot of campaigning over the years. I've never come across something where there is so much public sentiment locally, so much support, so much emotional attachment to the idea that this place should rise again, effectively.
So this has taken a lot of your life?
All of it, really, at the moment, yeah, about the last 8-9 months. Yeah, it's called obsession, really.
Ian's working here full-time,
yes.
And the rest of us help
out. I don't know how long I can carry on. Just physically, it's getting a bit difficult.
Is it?
And emotionally, yeah.
The Coal Exchange was also like a club for the hoorays of its day. Champagne bottles were used as skittles. It had its own vintners, tailors, and a dining club. It's in the last historical area of Bute Town, the dock area of Cardiff, and that's all in a bad state of decay. It's not just the Coal Exchange that has been left to rot for the last 30 years. It's also buildings like this, the old post office, built in 1881 by E.J. Rivers in glorious Italian style, and now in serious decay. The Corey Building, built in 1889, architects Bruton and Williams, empty now for 20 years. This magnificent former bank, built in 1926 by Palmer and Holden in classic Greek style, empty for over 20 years and in a bad state of neglect. The railway station, built in 1843 and left to rot for the last 30 years. All of these buildings, like the Coal Exchange, face an uncertain future, even though they have a Grade 2 listing for preservation. If they are left to rot long enough that they can be declared unsafe, Cardiff Council can knock them down.
It's so expensive to develop a listed building that the council put on an order which allowed them to come in, declare it a danger to the public, and then they can bring the bulldozers in. Simple as that. And then they can develop it without going to CADU, without going to the Assembly, things like that.
So you think in the last few years there's been a sort of deliberate policy of not fixing the building?
Well,
yes.
One of the councillors actually said to us that after they got the report, they were just told to pray for a high wind and hope the place fell down.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can't really understand the threat facing the Coal Exchange without first looking at what has already happened to the nearby docks and the Butetown community. It was a gold rush equivalent in coal. Enormous fortunes were made at the Coal Exchange, where the first £1 million deal in the world was struck. At its peak, the docks exported 14 million tons of coal a year. But then the coal boom ended. The Coal Exchange closed in 1958, but no attempt was made to renovate it for some other use, or for that matter the historical buildings around it, which has some of the best architecture in Cardiff. There was far quicker and easier money to be made by filling in the docks and tearing down the old warehouses and dock buildings. There was absolutely no incentive to renovate. New streets like this were built, where the docks had been, now lined with new houses. And here's the development team, who decided to fill the docks in. Here's another example of their work in the exact spot where the Pierhead dock used to be. I also discovered they're not too keen on having their handiwork examined.
I'm the manager of the site.
Oh, good for you.
And it's a licensed premises site, so obviously you have to have permission to film. So
we can't just film here?
No, sorry.
How strange.
Yeah, no, so it's a licensed premises site, so obviously you've got to go through our media department, which is Tim Powell, to be able to speak to him to confirm first, obviously because I don't know where you're filming.
Well, we're just filming where the dock used to be.
Yeah.
What do you think of the development? What do you think of this? Yourself?
Nothing.
You don't think anything?
No. So if you want to speak to Tim Powell first.
All right. Okay, we will. All right, thank you. The fight to save the Coal Exchange makes even more sense when I realize what has already been lost. Here are some examples of then and now.
Tiger Bay, Tiger Bay, it's not very far from the door. When you get to Loudon Square, turn to the right and you're not far from there. Tiger Bay, Tiger Bay, it's just like a fancy dress ball.
Butetown was a community made up of over 50 nationalities. seen here in the film Tiger Bay. Butetown was exceptional. There was absolutely no racial tension.
One of the quickest ways of finding a community's attitude to racial discrimination is to see what it thinks of mixed marriages. The sight of a white girl married to a coloured man can release the most violent prejudices. Does it happen in Butetown?
Racial question, man, it died out here. I don't think there'll be any more of it around this part of Wales.
Why do you think things are so peaceable down here? Why are things so peaceful?
Oh, well, I knows you and you knows me, and we meet up and say, good morning, Mr. Freeman, good morning, Mr. Johnson. Well, you come to my place, we get your belly full, and I go to your place, I get my belly full, come and lay down, sleep all the afternoon.
And this was all races mixing in together, was it?
West Indian, African, Portuguese, and
This incredible community of over 50 nationalities was destroyed in the rehousing, as was the Georgian Loudon Square seen here, which looks like this today. So back to the coal exchange. What chance did it really have? It slowly deteriorated until the late 70s, when it was decided to make it the home of the Welsh National Assembly. But far from being its saviour, this was when the building was really abused. I went to ask Ian if we could finally get into the hall, which I understood had been drastically changed since I'd last seen it.
No, you can't go in there. We have actually had surveys done of our own to say it's safe, but unfortunately, Health and Safety and the Council has so far refused to accept them.
And supposing you let us in there, what would happen?
Well, if we let them in there and anyone knew about it, then I'd be liable for a £20,000 fine and or 6 months of imprisonment.
Are you seriously intimidated by that?
Yes, definitely in some ways. I mean, intimidated enough. I'm not intimidated by it, no, but I'm equally not going to take you out on the balcony with a camera.
It's hard to make a film about saving a building when you're not allowed to see it.
What's down this way?
This is the place you're not allowed to go, I'm afraid, which is the balcony.
All right. Oh, that's actually the balcony.
On the second floor, yeah. So this was the wall in front of you also went in 1970 or whatever, and there's actually a balcony here,
right,
like the one downstairs, and they've put a wall in front of it to just to fill in the space basically, because now that's where the fourth roof.
It looks safe in there though, doesn't it?
No, it's not really.
It's not safe.
Yeah, no,
Right.
no.
Right.
Sorry.
All right. You're standing there to stop me going.
That's
in.
right, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Good.
All right.
Okay, let's go.
I'm not going to make a run for it.
Okay. All right. Well, if you do, we'll get some good work out, because I'll rugby tackle you.
You won't what?
I'll rugby tackle you.
Oh, will you?
And it'll make, be very good, good ceremony.
Well, I'm almost tempted to do it. It is frustrating, though. Ian had actually been pointing out the false wall that had been put up in the 70s, covering up the second gallery, and putting in a false ceiling covering the glass roof. When I had last seen it as a student in the 60s, the Coal Exchange looked like this, with a second gallery and a glass roof. There were offices all around the galleries, and people would shout their bids to the exchange floor. In the 70s, the glass roof was covered in, as well as the second gallery and the offices surrounding it. This shows the exterior of the Coal Exchange up until the 1970s. This is the main entrance. There was a restaurant to the right and steps leading to the exchange from the street. Then it was decided to put in a car park which would double as a nuclear air raid shelter. The restaurant and main approach from the street were covered in. The unique exchange floor, seen here, 1.5 feet below the normal floor where the bids were taken, I learned had also been filled in. Also during the 70s development, the original ornate wooden staircases were removed and these put in their place. I've been talking to the council about getting into the building, a building I love and remember so well, but weeks of phone calls have got me nowhere.
Jeez. Lucky I do these push-ups in the morning.
Cardiff Council say they've spent £900,000 on this scaffolding and the surrounding fence.
Oh my God. Bit of a rickety old ladder, this. Jesus.
I'm beginning to realize that my optimistic thoughts that making an architectural piece would be easy and not so stressful are wrong.
Anyway, I can't get in. It's a terrible condition.
It's estimated that it will cost £35 million to renovate the coal exchange. Here are recent plans backed by the council. Plans for a 21-storey tower block with 168 apartments. These plans were obtained under the Freedom of Information Act with much difficulty. Cardiff Council have been accused of abusing the Emergency Powers Act.
These powers are normally used in a situation of a real emergency. For example, if you have an articulated lorry hitting a building and it's looking perilously close to actually falling down, whereas clearly they've been drawn upon to facilitate certain actions or certain activity, and then no evidence of work going for many weeks and months. So there are some issues here that don't add up.
The sound of the capital city, Radio Cardiff.
Not everyone on the council supports what's happening to the coal exchange. I went to talk to Councillor Neil McAvoy at the local radio station.
So it's back to the chat. I've got Councillor Neil McAvoy, I've got DJ Silver, and I've got Nick. Back to the chat with Nick. Right, we were talking before I ran out and left you all. We were talking about the coal exchange and other beautiful buildings that are potentially going to be demolished. Is that true, Councillor? Is that in the council's policy at the moment?
That's not its policy, but it's certainly on the agenda. In Cardiff, in Wales, there's a complete lack of respect for our heritage and our history. And these great buildings are assets which should be cherished and saved and used, like you said, for different purposes. I think it would be absolutely criminal to demolish the coal exchange. In any other country in the world, it would be celebrated. They have a museum, they have a visitor centre.
This is the council's head of planning, Pat Thompson. He told me why he thinks the coal exchange should be demolished.
Of course, its purpose was, as it is, a coal exchange, which meant it was for the money men. So there is this issue that, in actual fact, people whose history and heritage is in the docks actually resent the people who were making all the money on the back of them, who were, you know, coal trimmers in the docks, or of course digging the coal up in the valleys, because they hate it, because they see it as an example of the people that made money on the back of their families.
This seemed like a bad excuse. In fact, born and bred Butte towners like Betty Campbell loved the coal exchange.
Well, when I was a child, we used to look at it and think, what a wonderful building, but we never entered it. But then times changed, and when I had been married 50 years, I had my golden wedding celebrations in this building. And I think I stood in the middle of the floor and I said to myself, I bet you never thought you'd see so many black people in this place in one go. So it was like a little victory for me. But another evening that I had here was when I retired as head teacher of Mount Stewart School in 1999. And I didn't have an inkling of what was going to happen. I was supposed to meet here, to meet some staff. We were going to go out. When I came here, when my husband brought me here, I could hear steel pans. And it was the children from Mount Stewart School who were playing the steel pans as we walked in. And when I went into the hall and saw the people there, I just couldn't believe it. And I think that, with the Golden Wedding here, were two of the most memorable evenings of my life.
The hall was opened in 2001 as an events venue. Then suddenly in August 2013, in the middle of a concert, Cardiff Council and the fire department closed the hall down. It's been closed ever since. I finally get permission to go inside the exchange hall. It's great to see Ian's enthusiasm for the building.
So I would be bidding to you from here, for example.
This was the trading floor, or just the floor. This is the place where, if you were standing, you could actually trade with people up there on the balcony. So a man out there could come out and say, right, I want a ship going to Norway, leaving within 2 days, taking 1,000 tons of coal. What's the best price for it? And people down here would bid for that. And then at the same time, other people come in and do deals with them about supplies for them and things like that. Railway companies, paint companies, for ship's bottoms now. People who sold pit props because the boats went out with coal and came back with pit props from Norway. Often the boats went out and they didn't have a load to bring back. Everyone wanted coal. So they had agents all over the world. And one ship at least came back from New York full of tin peaches. An American came here to write about Cardiff. And he said you could buy tin peaches on the streets of Cardiff cheaper than you could in America.
Wow.
So this is how important Cardiff was in those days. And the price of world coal was actually set here at that time.
Ian has also agreed to show us the back of the clock from the first floor gallery, which up to now has been a no-go area.
I'll step this way. This clock, this was made by a man who was by then called Spiridion. He was a Polish refugee, possibly Jewish. And they came over, I think, probably when the Russians were expanding into Eastern Europe. And
wow, it still works.
It still works. It still keeps good time too.
Does it?
Yeah. It's worth just listening to for a minute.
Six months after we left, an investor came forward with serious plans to develop it as a boutique hotel. The people of Butetown deserve to see their community restored. Let's hope it can get back some of the old magic it once had.
Tiger Bay, Tiger Bay, it's not ready.
BBC4's home season continues tomorrow with the rise, fall and rise again of the terraced house. Dan Cruikshank at home with the British at 9. Tonight, the ups and downs of our railways and the part played by the Beeching Report. Ian Hislop goes off the rails next.
And you're not far from there, Tiger Bay.